gentlemen, boys and girls, if you don't know, you won't know, but we about to tell you, so it's okay. My name is Dangerous Duke.
And it's your boy, Stevie Jobber.
And the last part of the trio, Mrs. Jobber.
And we are the Dangerous Jobbers Podcast. We got us a third person today.
There's a +1.
But we got a third person for a very special occasion. This is the first start of a new series that we're going to be running with called I Disagree. Now, for this series, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at feuds from the past. We're going to be taking two superstars from the feud. One of us is going to defend each person, and we're going to go back and forth on who's the right and who's in the wrong. And for the rest of the stuff within, we are going to send this over to our moderator, Mrs. Jobber.
All right, and we're going to go 3, 2, 1.
All right, first 3 minutes from my client, Eddie Guerrero. I would like to start my opening statement by saying that before we get into all the details, Chavo Guerrero should also be held accountable with Rey Mysterio. My client, Eddie Guerrero, is absolutely innocent. The only thing he's guilty of is trying to do the right thing. I would like to start also by saying that my whole thesis, this whole court session is being surrounded by the fact that Rey Mysterio ultimately is just a very bad friend. And everything that goes on beyond this point is completely his fault. He is the catalyst for this, as well as Chavo Guerrero. While you may not have all of the blame, Rey Mysterio does have most of it, but none of it falls on my client, Eddie Guerrero. I would also like to say that the involvement of children is not to my taste, but I feel like in the mental condition that Rey Mysterio has put my client in, it is totally validated. I believe that's all I have.
You have 1.5 minutes to speak without interruption. Are you sure?
Yeah. You know what? I'll refrain from saying anything tasteless. I want to keep this nice and classy. I don't expect my opponent to do the same. So I want to take the high road and save all the tasteless stuff for later down the line. I will leave that to Rey Mysterio's attorney.
Understandable. Okay. Dangerous Duke, it's your turn. 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, there is only one thing I agree with that Stevie Jobber has said, and that is Chavo Guerrero should be at fault as well. But Eddie Guerrero should also be at fault. This all stems strictly from jealousy. Jealousy. Not even from what happened in the 2000s. This jealousy stems all the way back from 1997 Halloween Havoc. Eddie has just been upset that he could never be better than Rey. He has been jealous of everything Rey has. He's been jealous of Rey's family, for the fact that Eddie Guerrero could not have his own son, for the fact that Eddie Guerrero could never beat Rey Mysterio. And this comes from the fact that, simply put, Rey Mysterio is all around the better superstar. The fans were behind him, everybody else was behind him, and Eddie just couldn't handle it. So Eddie just did what Eddie does. He lost it.
Quiet during the opening statement.
So hopefully, these people will be able to see Rey Mysterio is nowhere in the wrong. Rey Mysterio is in fact in the right for the fact that he also carried the team when Eddie would do nothing. Thank you.
You have a minute left. Are you sure you don't want to state anything else?
No, as of now, that's pretty much all I have. Okay. But I will enjoy the fact that this opening statement was uninterrupted. And in true Rey Mysterio fashion, I will be the nice guy about it.
All right.
Wow. Okay. Carried the team. Carried the team?
Carry the team.
Okay. Well, I guess starting from Halloween Havoc, where if the people who are listening aren't familiar, Eddie Guerrero, current WCW Cruiserweight Champion, was heading into this match with one Rey Mysterio in 1997, who was so afraid to lose his mask, he wore a full bodysuit just to barely escape with the championship.
Might I add, Rey Mysterio did not want to be a part of this match at all. He did it to be a good friend to one Eddie Guerrero.
Are you sure it's because he didn't want to go maskless?
Did he not go maskless with Kevin Nash?
He escaped by the skin of his teeth in that
he was already unmasked once, though.
Match. Yeah, and how great was that a time for him? While Eddie was out winning championships, starting his own Latino World Order, doing very big things already.
And who was supporting him?
Young Rey Mysterio.
And who was supporting him?
Was so terrified of Eddie Guerrero's success and clear skill ability that reigned over his, he decided he wanted to wear a full bodysuit just to prevent Eddie easily taking his mask off, which is possibly the only reason he escaped and won that match.
So,
with a roll-up, might I add, which is, some would say, the equivalent to cheating, almost.
Okay, now allow James his rebuttal.
It doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning is winning. And might I add, you say some people would call that cheating, which is very, very interesting coming from the man whose mantra is lie, cheat, and steal.
It's not a bad point.
That was later in the 2000s. We're talking about 1997. I feel like your statement is irrelevant up to this point. Also, I would like to add to the jury, it is a low blow to come at a man's reproductive abilities.
Oh, no.
Yep.
We did not come at his reproductive abilities.
Walking statements back.
No, we didn't. We said his ability to have a son. We didn't say anything about his ability to have kids, which, might I add, he has 3 of.
It's a general statement. It's a general statement.
More than Rey Mysterio's 2.
It's a general statement.
Continue.
I don't know. I feel like it's wrong to bring kids into this. When you have a perfect mental state. I will say that.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. It is wrong to bring kids in this since Eddie was the one to say Rey is not your father.
When you're in a perfect mental state.
I'm sorry, who was in a perfect mental state?
In 1997.
Really?
Both men were in a perfect mental state.
I'm sorry, when
we're bringing up kids when people were in great mental states. And not to mention, as much as you would like to come at my client for general reasons that have nothing to do with the feud at hand, I would like to say that My client is a former alcoholic who changed his life to come back to this business.
But if
to be betrayed by one Rey Mysterio, which we will get into in a second, I would just like to say that those things do affect your brain, and the kind of trauma that he has gone through Rey's
in 1997, might I add?
Not in 1997.
Oh, I'm sorry,
moving
98.
Into the 2000s, moving into WWF and WWE, the relentless mental trauma that Rey Mysterio has caused him over these years, having to carry him, having to look out for him, having to be his older brother in a sense, having to take him in as family, could possibly cause enough trauma to later bring these dramatic extensions into this feud.
Right.
But we'll get into that later.
Moderator interjecting here. As Dominick's, genetics or whatever, was brought into the feud, it is free range to be talked about, since it was a very big part. So, Duke's statement stands. And it will be included.
Thank you, moderator.
That being said, I would like to go into let's go into WrestleMania 21st of 2005.
Okay.
After Chavo Guerrero, who we mutually agree is the catalyst for this, has talked Eddie and Rey into a singles match as tag team champions. Totally Chavo's fault. We will start there. Okay. Chavo gaslighted this and stirred the pot. Fine. They have the match. Rey again escapes by the skin of his teeth. And April 7th comes. April 7th, new champ, John Cena, is cutting a promo. Many people are stepping up, former champions, to try and get their opportunity at one John Cena. After Eddie Guerrero comes out, former champion, Rey Mysterio decides he wants to join in. Fine, perfectly fine. You know, you would want your family to feel like they have equal reigns.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
After this, they meet in the locker room for a discussion. Mm-hmm. In that discussion, Eddie, great friend that he is telling Rey Mysterio, hey, be careful out there. You know, JBL's a hard guy to beat for this contenders match. And you've never been a world champion before, correct?
Correct.
So, in a sense, it would be a good friend's move as a former champion to look out for his friend and say, hey, be careful out there, man. You might be biting off a little more than you can chew, and I'm worried for you. But I want to be out there to make sure that things go according to plan. And your client, Rey Mysterio, is saying, hey, maybe that's not the best idea. Totally understandable. Now, they went into some issues during the match, Rey and JBL, where JBL's cabinet is coming to the ring. To save him, like a good friend, Eddie Guerrero comes down to ringside. Now, totally disregarding the fact that when they talked about this earlier, Rey said, hey, I can handle myself out there because I've beaten you, which is a totally unexpected and uncalled for jab. Eddie, good friend, comes down to the ring anyway and defends Rey Mysterio. Now, yes, JBL, it did some things to Eddie, and Eddie, being the hothead that he is, cost Rey the match. But being the good friend to even be out there, I think should be credited. And I would like to say, on top of being out there as a good friend, after having an uncalled jab at him earlier, is only a testament to
I
how
will
bad a friend Ray is.
I will rebuttal
Okay.
on that unnecessary jab comment due to the fact it was not an unnecessary jab. He is just simply acknowledging that he can beat a former world champion. He's saying he can beat Bradshaw, who also is a former world champion, because he beat Eddie, who happens to be a former world champion.
So you're saying it's about the context?
Yes, he is basically saying he has what it takes to beat this former world champion because he beat another former world champion who just happens to be better than the one he's facing in the ring.
Valid statement. Valid statement.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if you had just taken a traumatic loss on the biggest wrestling stage of all, would you want your best friend to unintentionally bring it up? With no prior context.
Technically, it's not unintentional.
The match was not previously brought up. Now, you could say, I've beaten former world champions. Did you have to specify that it was the man you just beat, who was your best friend, who was holding this match in a very high regard, considering he had lost to you previously? I feel like maybe that might be a touchy subject at the time. Am I wrong?
Not necessarily.
I also want to take away another one of your arguments.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
You said Chavo Guerrero instigated it, which he did. But you're giving Chavo a little bit too much credit. You want to talk about mental states, and you want to talk about how Chavo is an instigator as well. Last I checked, isn't Eddie Guerrero his uncle? Why is the nephew persuading the uncle to do things that are unnecessary? Last I checked, shouldn't the uncle be talking to the nephew and teaching the nephew and telling the nephew things?
That's the point.
Why is the nephew telling the uncle? Anybody who's in a good mental state would know that the nephew does not control the uncle.
Hold on to that thought. We'll get back to that because the following week, Eddie has his shot at contending for the world championship. And guess who causes him that match? None other than bad friend Rey Mysterio. And Eddie again is frustrated. You want to talk about Chavo Guerrero? Well, after they come to terms with, mistakes happen, we are still family, they have a conversation after losing the tag titles to MVP. MVP.
Was it MVP or was it Eminem? Can you please get your statements together, please?
Hey, no pettiness.
Thank you. After losing the tag titles to Eminem, they have a discussion about getting them back, which Chavo Guerrero comes in on and tries to, again, interject and stir the pot, saying, he's not a Guerrero, this and that. You're treating him better than me. Chavo was acting out of jealousy, not Eddie Guerrero, which is why he stirred the pot with them previously before WrestleMania. Yes, mental states come into account, but that's not until later. Chavo acting on jealousy is trying to split them up. But good friend Eddie Guerrero that he is also considers and says it to Chavo, confronting him before the match, hey, this is my family too. I'm family to both of you. Right? Because he's a great friend. This is my family, you're my family, and you're not going to break us up because of your jealousy. Seems like a perfect mental state to me. Now, the turn of this night is Rey Mysterio's fault. And I'll explain why.
Please do.
Sitting on the apron, having a perfectly good tag match thus far. Eddie's on the side, watching Ray struggle, and is there for him to tag, and starts to think. He starts to think about, well, Ray has cost me a title match in the past few weeks. Ray has beaten me in the past few weeks, and while beating me, Ray has thrown jabs at me because of it. So Eddie says to himself while he's on the apron, why am I here? Defending somebody, helping somebody hold on to tag team titles I ultimately helped us win. When he is beating down on me about beating me previously and costing me title shots. And maybe in that time, he was confused. He had a moment of weakness. And he stood numb while they lost the tag titles. I feel like that is totally Rey Mysterio's fault. What would you have to say to that?
It's time for Duke's report.
I am going to say, you want to talk about costing title shots. Who costed who the first title shot? Who interjected first and cost their friend the title shot?
Eddie Guerrero.
So, with that being said, wouldn't you think it is perfectly right to cost Eddie? Because just for the simple fact that Eddie cost him first.
Okay, consider this. Okay? Consider this. You know your best friend, correct? You know his anger. You know his weaknesses. You know his strengths. Now, considering that you've already mutually decided that we're not going to interject in each other's matches, if your friend came out to help because you were being attacked unfairly, that is a good friend being a good friend, regardless of the mutual decision.
That is a good friend who comes out and defends the people attacking him.
Correct.
But he does not need to attack the person.
He's not answering the question.
He does not need to attack.
Let him explain.
Yes or no question.
And he agreed. Let him explain his reasoning.
He wasn't explaining. He was going on.
He let him explain his reasoning.
I said correct. I didn't ask for
it is perfect.
Moderator is speaking.
Listen to the moderator. It is perfectly logical for a friend to come out and defend his friend.
That's all you needed to say.
Against the people.
That's all he needed to say.
Against the outside people. For the person involved in the match, he does not need to attack. That is for Ray to focus on. Eddie can focus on the people outside that are trying to make their way in. Eddie does not need to attack the opponent that Ray is already in a sanctioned match with, thus costing Ray his shot at the title.
I think me and Eddie would agree with you. Here's the problem. As I said before, yes or no, you would know your friend, correct?
I would assume so.
Okay. You see that slight...
You're posing a hypothetical question, you give a hypothetical answer.
Whatever. I'm just saying correct was what I asked, and he didn't say correct. Small jabs.
Can you... Okay, well then...
Very petty.
Dude, can you officially answer? No. Can you officially answer yes or no?
If the situation arose, I would agree.
Okay. You have your answer.
Being a good friend is coming out to help a friend when they're outnumbered, correct?
Sure.
If you understood that your friend was a hothead and the person you are against put their hands on your friend, you would understand your friends, your best friends, your practical brother's reaction to that if you understood your brother, correct?
I would.
So, is it really Ray's point to be upset at Eddie Guerrero if knowing your friend your friend coming out to help you and not directly interjecting in your match, if your opponent put hands on your friend, you would know your friend well enough to know he's not going to let that slide, correct?
I will agree because you just said it. Eddie is a hothead. Eddie is not in the right mental state. Clearly, what you just said earlier, previous.
He's allowed to have his rebuttal. He's allowed to have
It's what you said previous. So, to my point, I can agree, but you said it best. Eddie is a hothead, and he is not in the right mental state. Clearly, more of the reason why this is Mr. Guerrero's fault.
My point was, and you've totally agreed to it up to this point, that knowing your friend, if your friend came out to help you and someone put hands on your friend and you already knew they were a hothead, you shouldn't be that upset with them about interjecting in your match unintentionally. And did he or did he not apologize for it afterwards? Yes.
How do we know it was unintentional?
Yes.
How do we know it was unintentional?
Did he or did he not apologize to him after?
He apologized, but just...
That is all I needed you to say.
Moving on.
He's allowed to have a point.
So moving on, I asked him a question. He answered the question.
I will get my rebuttal.
Let him have his point. Let him have his point.
Let me walk into a kitchen. Let me grab a glass plate. I will slam that plate on the floor. Just because I say sorry, does that fix the plate?
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we're talking about wrestling. This man is bringing up unintentional points.
And you were bringing up hypothetical things with friends.
I would agree.
I'm bringing up practical situations that were actually played out pertaining to our situation that he has agreed with and then talked over the agreement to make it sound better. When all I needed was the agreement.
Hey,
listen, you're using your examples, he's using his examples.
I am just advocating for my examples as to why my client, Rey Mysterio, is in the right and your client, Eduardo Guerrero, is in the wrong.
All I'm saying is if you ask me a question, I would agree and let you continue your point.
How do I know this?
Okay, next point.
Are we really doing
this? Next point. No pettiness. Next point.
Do your point. So I cannot step all over your point.
It is Duke's turn. Duke, you can give your first point. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, I stated the facts that Eddie is in the wrong because everything Eddie has done is strictly and purely out of jealousy. Jealousy of my client's family, jealousy of my client's career, the fan following, and everything in between.
Okay, so we're at Eminem taking the titles off of Eddie and Rey. Give me one example of your case for Rey Mysterio thus far.
The fans have been behind Rey Mysterio more than they've been behind Eddie Guerrero. Eddie has not been very, what's the word I'm looking for? Eddie has not been too keen to the idea that someone is outshining him with the WWE fans. Eddie is used to being Mr. Latino Heat, Three Amigos, 5-star Frog Splash. When he sees somebody new that he's known for a long period of time coming up, that doesn't sit well with Eddie. So Eddie gets jealous. He starts to look. And he gets jealous of Rey Mysterio's family.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Well, would you consider it that possibly it's not fan jealousy? Would you consider, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that possibly it is a personal attack by Rey Mysterio, verbally, that confirms all the previous disapproved things Chavito Guerrero had said to him, would you consider that possibly Rey Mysterio's ignorance and jabs at Eduardo Guerrero would ignite held trauma mixed with convincing words from Chavo Guerrero that maybe Rey Mysterio is a bad friend? Maybe Rey Mysterio is trying to push Eddie over the edge. Would you consider that Rey Mysterio interjecting in one of his championship contending matches after they have already agreed not to intervene and previous things that have happened have been apologized for, that maybe Rey Mysterio is trying to steal his spotlight? Would you consider Eddie Guerrero being a previous champion? Would you consider Eddie Guerrero being a previous champion now helping Rey Mysterio, who's never been a world champion, hold tag team title gold, and then taking jabs at him because he got by in a match that was very important to Eddie Guerrero, that maybe he's being a little selfish?
Okay, now we're going to give it to Duke because he raised his hand for his rebuttal.
I'm sorry. My watch had stopped working.
He doesn't have a watch.
I will not consider any of that for the simple fact I will consider the Chavo thing. I will consider the Chavo thing. Everything else I will not consider. And I'm sorry, what were your other points? Something about you said something about Rey being jealous?
Yes. I said something about Rey being jealous. I said something about him taking unintentional jabs. Not unintentional, I'm sorry. Unneeded, unnecessary jabs. Mm-hmm. And doing actions to get back at Eddie that were previously apologized for that did not need to be done.
And I will still stick with the jealousy thing, but I will double down on top of it. Not only family, maybe it stems from the fact that Eddie Guerrero has never beat Rey Mysterio. Not once. When we started this back in 1997, didn't beat him then. They've had their match in the 2000s. Didn't beat him then. We move on. And is it okay if we talk about the custody here?
Let's start with Judgment Day.
All right, well, I'll just save this, and then I'll stick with Eddie has never beat him, and maybe that's where Eddie's jealousy and anger and his mental state come from. Mm-hmm. So I will let you start with Judgment Day.
So up to this point, your argument is Eddie is jealous of Rey taking the spotlight. Mm-hmm. Thus, he turns on him.
Not just the spotlight. Not just the spotlight. I say he's jealous of Rey about everything.
In general.
Yeah.
Family, son.
Eddie wants what Rey has. And that, in turn, when Eddie realizes he can't get it, he tries to force his way into it.
Stop there. Okay. Up to this point, we've talked about Halloween Havoc. We've talked about WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. We've talked about Rey leaving Eddie to lose the tag team championships to Eminem.
Eddie leaving Rey.
Eddie left Rey, yes. So,
such a good friend.
Your argument up to this point.
Such a good friend.
Your argument up to this point, thank you, has been that Eddie is jealous of Rey, that he wants everything that he has. My argument has been Rey Mysterio has been taking unintentional jabs. I'm sorry, I keep saying unintentional. Mm-hmm. They're completely intentional. They're unnecessary jabs. Mm-hmm. Rey Mysterio has been taking unnecessary jabs. He has been rubbing victories in his face, as well as costing him victories. That, mixed with Chavo Guerrero's his intentional stirring of the pot of jealousy, has made Eddie come to certain realizations. To refute your fact that Rey Mysterio is making Eddie jealous, I would just like to say Eddie Guerrero is already a Cruiserweight champion, WCW Cruiserweight champion, has already won a world title and tag titles with Chavo Guerrero, and has nothing to be jealous of Rey about. Family is a step too far, personally, for me. Now, moving on.
I'm going to remember that
Judgment
point.
Day.
I will remember that point.
Day. Absolutely. Remember everything that I said. And think about it when you're rebuttaling. So.
No need to be snide.
I was also snide at. Okay. I would like an unbiased moderator.
Excuse me.
Moving on to Judgment Day. Now, after, or moving towards Judgment Day, after Eddie has had this moment of weakness, standing on the apron, realizing I've had jabs taken at me, title opportunities taken away from me. I've had one head saying, this isn't your family. I've had another head saying, hey, I've beaten you, and you're getting in my way, even though I was just trying to help. After the moment of weakness I have, letting us lose tag titles, he comes back and he says, hey, you know what? Let's just not do this. Rey is in his face the week after. Rey is upset. Rey is heated. Rey comes out to Eddie Guerrero and say, hey, I want to fight. And Eddie wants no part of it. Eddie, being the good friend that he is, knows, yes, I was wrong for having that moment of weakness. But I know it was a moment of weakness. And I don't want to have this thing with you because I love you and I care about you. Oh, no, wait till I finish my point. And what does Rey do? Instead of letting Eddie walk off, he slaps him. Slaps him in the face. Now, in heated moments, Eddie has pushed Rey. Rey has pushed Eddie. But a slap in the face is uncalled for. Just as uncalled for is telling a man that you've beaten him the night after when he's trying to give you a word of advice. And Eddie says to him, he says, I have never put my hands on you the way that you just put your hands on me. Only further validating things that not only Chavo has said, but actions that Rey has displayed that would tell Eddie, hey, maybe this guy's not as good as a friend to you as you were being to him.
Valid point. Valid point. And now?
So you are saying Eddie Guerrero has never put hands on Rey Mysterio?
That is not what I said.
Okay, well, please explain it to me again.
I said Eddie's words were, I have never put my hands on you the way you have just put your hands on me. Eddie, up to this point, has never blatantly slapped him in the face. After denying a challenge from him, out of the love and kindness of his heart, he got slapped in the face.
Are you sure?
I saw it. And
so is he just talking about WWE? Because if I'm not mistaken, he has put his hands on Rey that type of way in years previous.
We're talking about their current friendship up to this point. Friendship.
This has happened while they were friends.
Friendship.
This has happened while they were friends.
Not in WCW.
Oh, so we're not counting the friendship of WCW?
Because they have notably had many disagreements in WCW and been on many different sides on WCW. They weren't cohesive friends.
But they were friends in WCW.
Okay, let me interject here. So it was a part of their past, though. Correct?
It was a part of their past.
Correct. I'm looking at you.
Over a decade ago, yes.
It was a part of their past, though. And this is their complete rivalry of all different things.
I could have been a dancer at Chippendales a decade ago. It's still a part of my past.
Sure.
He's not wrong.
Sure.
So he can bring it in.
Sure.
It is relevant. It is a part of their past. It is a part of their rivalry.
I did not need to use the Chippendales reference, but hey, it could have happened.
Could you say, honestly, while they were actually friends, that Eddie has ever put his hands on Rey Mysterio?
Eddie's put his hands on Rey Mysterio?
While they were actually friends. Can you say that?
Were they friends in WCW?
Yes, but not the entire time.
Okay, well, yes.
If at a point in time where they were not friends, Eddie has put his hands on them, is that still validated now?
I would think
After
so.
they're actually friends?
Well, when they were friends and it happened, yes.
Okay.
No, that's like if I smack you yesterday, did I still smack you?
The point is, if we are at odds at some point, and I put my hands on you when we were at odds, if later we become friends, and you slap me while we're friends, you can't go back to when we weren't friends and say, you slapped me then, so I get to slap you now.
The slap occurred when they were friends.
Yeah, when Ray slapped him. Whenever
when
Eddie
Eddie
had put his
slapped
hands on him, it was not while they were currently friends in WCW.
Okay, we are going to go
It
back.
was when they were at odds.
We are going to
which
go,
makes your point irrelevant.
We are going to go watch WCW, sir, because we are
can
going
watch whatever you want to
We
watch.
are going to watch WCW
My point is
because
totally
you will
valid.
see what my point is.
My point is totally valid. They have been in WWE since the 2000s. In those 5 years, even if you start from 2000,
A certain someone
Eddie has
doesn't
never
remember
put his hands on
WCW
Ray
days.
that way. Is what I'm saying.
It's
At
okay.
least in the past 5 years of their friendship.
It's okay.
At least, if you want to be nitpicky about it, in the last 5 years at least of their friendship, Eddie has never put his hands on him the way Ray has put his hands on Eddie. After the apologies, after the anger, after leaving him high and
So
dry,
you're
and
basically
apologizing for it,
just
after
shortening my
denying
time
the
frame.
fight.
Hold on.
You're basically just shortening my time frame.
I don't know why you're mad at me. I was gonna let you finish your point.
I'm not mad at you.
You're basically,
Take a moment here.
Go ahead. You can
Take
finish.
a moment here. Finish your point.
What I'm saying is, in the past 5 years of their friendship, if you want to be nitpicky about it, fine. Whatever happened in WCW, sure, have that, whatever. Even though I've made valid points about up to Halloween Havoc and after already. Fine. If you want to be nitpicky about when they were friends, and everything is valid, whether they were friends or not at that point, fine. I can say, in the last 5 years of their friendship, which is a long time, yes,
I'll agree to the 5 years.
Eddie has never put his hands on Ray the way Ray put his hands on him. Especially disrespectful after Eddie's already denied fighting with him and apologized for his actions, yes?
So you mean
Would it be disrespectful to
the
slap
actions
someone?
that he already attacked him?
Would it? No, he hadn't attacked him up to this point.
He hasn't
which
attacked.
makes it even worse.
Let him ask his question.
He hasn't attacked him, but he has cost him a world title.
Yes, they both have.
Might I ask who caused who first?
Eddie,
Okay.
which I've already spoken about.
Okay.
Okay,
Asking questions.
I'm just asking.
and I'm responding.
I'm just asking.
I'm not stepping all over his points.
Okay.
Let's keep that in mind. Whoever's listening, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm not stepping over his points. I'm answering his questions
I'm not
up
stepping
front
over
and
points.
leaving it at that.
All right. No need to explain.
Just saying. So we can agree that Ray has slapped Eddie. Yes.
We can agree.
We can agree that Eddie denied fighting him. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So later that night, Chavo is talking to Eddie because Chavo, on Eddie's behalf, without Eddie saying anything, has accepted a fight with Rey Mysterio. Because Eddie, being the loving, best friend, good friend that he is, has denied fighting him even after being slapped in the face and verbally abused about losing to him. And Chavo was telling him, you let him slap you in the face and you did nothing. You are such a better guy than me. I feel like this is a great call to Eddie being a good friend. Yes?
Valid point.
So later in the night, after Eddie has had all night to stew and think about the actions, the wrongs done to him while being jumped, seeing his best friend jumped, Eddie goes out and saves Ray again. He saves Ray from being jumped. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. You can go back and watch the footage. He beat up all the guys that beat him up.
What happened after?
And then after saving Ray and making it a one-on-one, yes, Eddie then lets out all his anger on one Rey Mysterio. Now, this is after denying the fight with Ray. This is after being cost the title. This is after losing to Ray, being rubbed in his face. This is having his nephew take a fight with him because he was trying to be such a good friend. He was trying so hard to do right by Ray that he didn't accept his fight. He decided, you know what? I'm going to save you again because that's what I do. And then I'm going to keep this between us, which is a noble move if you're trying to end a friendship on good terms. Yes?
Okay. Trying to let you.
That is why
I was not saying yes or no to anything because I did not want him accusing me of stepping over his comments.
You're fine. You're fine.
So, you're still mentioning Chavo. Why is Chavo telling Eddie what to do? He didn't?
Chavo said, you let him slap you across the face. You're a better man than me. I'm going to fight him for you. Eddie said nothing. Chavo did that on his own account.
If Eddie is such a good friend, wouldn't Eddie be a good uncle too? To let his younger nephew know it's okay. I can handle my own battles. I can do my own thing.
It's a valid point.
If I could interject very quickly and then let you continue your point. When
If
Chavo
you allow
said
it.
this to...
I will be nice and allow him to.
Okay.
When Chavito said this to him, Eddie, about to cry, eyes red, boiled over in anger, did nothing but stand up when Chavo again reminded him that he had just been slapped in the face by his best friend after refusing to fight with him. Now, I would imagine after being slapped in the face by your best friend, you were kind of in the middle of the road about what to do next. And as much as you don't want to lay your hands on him, you feel like something needs to happen. So you're kind of at odds when your nephew is telling you, I'm going to fight for your disrespect. So maybe Eddie, not in the mental state because he's just been slapped in the face by his best friend after refusing to fight with him. Maybe mentally you're not all there to tell your nephew, hey, maybe you let me fight my own battles. Maybe he thought in the back of his head, you know what, maybe Chavo's right to fight for me. Maybe if it was my uncle, I would fight for him. And when you're in the middle of the road mentally, emotionally like that, you don't have all the words. There you go.
Okay.
So, he didn't have all the words. His actions were, let Chavo and Eminem beat up Ray. Then come and, quote unquote, save the day. Get them out of the ring. Help up an already beaten down Ray. And beat him some more. Not just beat him. Beat him to the point he couldn't walk. Beat him to the point he lost his mask. That is disrespect. Both come from a lucha libre culture, correct?
Correct.
So you say a slap in the face is disrespect. Last I checked, in the culture of lucha libre, it is the ultimate disrespect to beat down a man so bad that you remove his mask. Was Ray not in the ring? No, excuse me, he was outside the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Outside the ring, with his hands over his face, with Eddie holding the mask. That is more disrespect than anything I've seen in the culture of lucha libre.
Comparing that to a slap into it's an avid comeback. It's an avid rebuttal.
It's an avid rebuttal.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree. It was very disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
My argument to you thus far has been this, and I said it in my opening statement, that Eddie was put in a terrible mental state that caused him to react the way that he's been reacting. And my whole argument thus far is that time and time again, he's been driven to this edge. One by Chavo, hey, you couldn't beat Ray, so you joined him. Small jab. Eddie took him and was like, hey, well, we'll have a match. After the match, we're friends. We're fine. Then you remind me how you beat me. Like this already wasn't a big thing for me. Okay, fine. I see you getting jumped. I go out to help you. Someone lays their hands on me. You know I'm a hothead. I did things I shouldn't have did. I apologize. We move on. Next week, you get involved in my match. You cost me the match. I get upset. I pushed you. I apologize. I was upset. You know how I get. You cost me one. I cost you one. We're even. We're cool. And it just seems time and time again, you're coming at me. He's coming at me. And before you know it, I'm emotional. I had a moment of weakness. So I left you. Then you come out the next week and slap me in my face? Wow.
It seems like you've been having a lot of moments of weakness.
Yeah. Maybe he's not that strong of a guy, but I tell you what, he's a great friend. And when
he
you
sure
break a
has
great
a
friend,
funny way of showing it.
And when you break a great friend emotionally, what is he to do? He does some things that are a little uncalled for, but guess what? He's not in the right mental state to know that because you have pushed him there.
Like going after another man's family.
Yes. Like going after another man's family.
So you think that that's okay?
When you have suffered from trauma, alcoholic trauma, when you have suffered from emotional trauma, losing your best friends, fighting debates over it, losing some of the most important people in your life, and someone you love and care for knows all that you have been through and slaps you in the face because you were trying to be a loving friend to him. Maybe Eddie Guerrero not being in the best place mentally, maybe him weak emotionally, pushed him to do things that some would say are uncalled for. But guess what? When people are not in the right mental state for things, things go wrong. Now, I'm not saying Eddie is totally validated. What I'm saying is he was pushed to a place where he wasn't able to make the right mental, emotional decisions. Because why? Because of Chavo Guerrero and Ray being a bad friend.
May I interject real quick and ask a question? At this point in time, for where you're talking about, had Chris Benoit died yet?
No.
That comes after?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if that was ever interjected into anything.
No, that wasn't interjected into the story.
Okay, I just figured emotional state. So for the ones that don't know, I know barely anything about wrestling. She's
just moderating.
I know some, but it's been a long time since I've come back to wrestling. I've only been back into wrestling for the past 2.5 years, so I'm still learning, asking questions. Okay. Duke, your rebuttal?
I will say this. We've talked about so much in here, and it's hard to keep track, but I'm trying to.
We're just after Judgment Day.
I tried to.
So we're just after Judgment Day. So now we are starting to hit what I was mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So all of these points, Eddie's mental state.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, there have been some good points.
Mm-hmm.
This is where things start to actually take their turn even more.
Yeah.
You got slapped in the face.
Mm-hmm.
You attack Ray. You remove his mask.
Mm-hmm.
You go after his family.
Mm-hmm.
You start spreading these allegations that a child is not Ray's. That the child is, in fact, Eddie Guerrero's. Right state of mind or not, a child has no business being involved in this. So my question is, why do you Why does your client involve a child that is not his and spread these lies that the child is his?
You ready? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, in the next half of this podcast, defendant or lawyer...
Rey Mysterio's defendant.
Rey Mysterio's defendant is going to try and sway you to believe that Eddie Guerrero is totally wrong about this entire thing because he has brought a child into a situation that doesn't call for it. In the first half of this podcast, I've explained to you that Eddie Guerrero's mental state was pushed to the brink. He exploded. Wait, I'm not at my point. He has exploded into doing irrational things. Now, at Judgment Day, Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio have a match. Before this match, Eddie Guerrero has told Rey Mysterio, "You have pushed me to do these things," which I have proved up to this point. Eddie Guerrero says, "I didn't want to do it. You made me do it, right? You brought me to this point. You were just asking for it," which I've made valid points of why that could be the case. And I would like to just add to that, after Judgment Day, when Eddie, again, pushed to the brink, got so frustrated, where a normal Eddie Guerrero would probably cheat, as he's known to do, or he would defend his honor. He would do his best, possibly lose, possibly win. Eddie got so heated, he started thinking about all the things Rey has done, that he instead hitting him with a chair and disqualifying himself from the match, opting not to take the victory that meant so much to him. He opted not to take it and just hit Rey with the chair and got himself DQ'd. Now, in every week following after, up to the point that Duke was so ready to rush to, Rey Mysterio became a maniac. Don't be so quick to talk yet. You speeded up over this, so I'm going to talk about it. After opting out of beating Rey Mysterio and hitting him with the chair, Rey Mysterio became unhinged. He was, in a sense, so upset he was unable to be controlled. Every week after this, Rey Mysterio, anytime he saw or heard Eddie was anywhere, he fought Eddie. Anywhere, any place, not in a ring where wrestlers are supposed to fight each other. Any chance he got, he attacked Eddie Guerrero. So now, Eddie's not just hurt mentally, emotionally, physically, and he's paranoid. What is Eddie left to do, ladies and gentlemen? He's already been driven to the brink of mental insanity. He's already been emotionally torn down from the inside by the man he thought was his best friend. But now, he can't even walk around to his car, to his locker room, to the ring, because there's a maniac chasing him and beating him down every time he turns around. So Eddie, in a unstable place, mentally, emotionally, physically, does the only thing he thinks will keep Rey in line, will keep Rey away from him, will keep himself safe. He brings up something so valuable to Rey Mysterio that it will keep Rey Mysterio from beating him down, attacking him, and maybe they can be friends like they used to be. Remember, Eddie's not thinking straight. Eddie is not in a place where he is emotionally, mentally stable. He's paranoid. He's upset. He's broken down. So he decides, in his place of logic, that the only way things will be okay is if he can win and he can restore things to how they used to be. So he says to Rey, Well, I have stories for Dominick. I have a secret that we hold dear that I could tell him if you push me to that. Because that's what you've been doing. I just want things to be okay. But if you keep pushing me, I'm going to do something that doesn't need to be done. All you have to do is your part in restoring our friendship to where it needs to be. Yes?
The friendship does not get restored once you bring the child involved. Once you involve a child in a place that a child does not need to be involved, that's when the friendship is not restored. It is unrestorable at that point. There is no reason for it. And in turn, once Eddie did that and started bringing in the child, started fabricating these stories,
let him have his point.
This is when Eddie Guerrero, in turn, snapped. Did Eddie Guerrero not attack a good friend, Bob Holly, when Bob Holly came to his aid and tried to talk to him logically and professionally? Did Eddie Guerrero not attack Bob Holly?
Correct.
So he attacked a good friend for the point of just trying to be professional, be polite, and talk to him. Ever since Eddie brought a child that was not his into the story, Eddie in turn became a madman in his own right. You say Rey Mysterio snapped. Rey Mysterio went off. Did Eddie Guerrero yell at and harass his wife in front of their daughters on national television?
Correct.
Has Rey Mysterio yelled at or harassed his daughter or son or wife on television?
Not that we've seen. No, not on television.
Hey, we're not in 2020 yet. He didn't come at Aaliyah. But, like you said, he has not harassed his daughter, his wife, or his son. When this whole situation went down and Dominick ran from him in the heat of the moment of not knowing what's going on, Ray still ran after him to try to hug him and console him. What did Eddie do in that situation? He stood on the ramp and chuckled like the sociopath that he is. And to go and make merchandise about it is also uncalled for. You may go.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, think about everything that the Rey Mysterio's defendant has said up to this point. Remember everything I said starting. Remember what I said he was going to try to persuade you to think. He's listed all these points, yelling at your wife, yelling at your kids, beating up best friends. I implore you to think this. A man that is not in his right mentally, emotionally, physically, pushed up against a wall in every aspect of mentally thinking, physically, punishment, emotional stress. You're not thinking rationally. You're not thinking logically. That's the word you use, logically.
Sure.
So when Bob Holly, good friend, comes up to him to try and explain a better way to do things, I don't know, the logical thing to do would be consider him, right? But when one of your best friends has already destroyed your sense of logic and reality, and you're against that friend has followed you around, beating you down, pushing victories in your face, relentlessly. Logic to you up to that point is, all my friends are my enemies. So it just makes sense to him, logically, to beat up Bob Holly before Bob Holly can do the same thing his best friend has done, because what is a better example of what friends are for if your best friend is chasing you around, beating you down like a maniac?
Then how do you explain the yelling at the wife and the children?
Well, if you were listening to any of the yelling, he would yell things like, "You don't need to be here. I've got this. Go away. Go back home."
Isn't that a wife's job to support her husband in his time of need?
It absolutely is. But when a man is at work, mentally, physically, emotionally stressed, and he's in war zone, paranoid, because there's a man following him around, beating him down everywhere he goes. One, it's not safe for you to be here. It's not really even safe for me to be here. You don't need to be here. You need to give me the reins, because I feel like I found a way to control this madman who used to be my best friend, who was beating me down everywhere I go. You're yelling at me about the right things to do, but he's so broken up inside, and he finally
hasn't done a single right thing.
He's finally felt like he's stumbled onto the thing that gets Rey Mysterio to stop doing what he's doing to him.
So he in turn starts doing it himself.
Once he delivered it, night one that he delivered this information to Rey, what? He went and apologized. He asked him for a favor to not release it. He went out there and started doing things Eddie wanted him to do. He didn't beat him down as soon as he saw him. So a man that is emotionally, physically, and mentally beat down, when you don't have to look over your shoulder anymore, when your best friend is apologizing, when he's willing to do the things to make it right all of a sudden, and you're broken so you're not thinking straight, when all the things you want start coming to you, you think this is the right path, yes?
So your idea of the right path is putting a child in a situation he does not need to be put into in order to get your result that you want.
That's not what I'm saying.
That sounds exactly like what you're saying.
What I'm saying is, in Eddie Guerrero's mental state.
So in Eddie Guerrero's mental state, he used a child to gain an advantage. He used a child to get his way.
Yes. But I'm not defending that. What I'm defending is...
You're his defendant, so that's what you're defending. You're defending his actions.
What I'm defending is...
You're defending his actions. You're his defendant.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not advocating for his actions, but I'm defending them. I'm defending them not by saying they were right. I'm defending them by saying he was not in the perfect mental state. I'm proving to the jury the logic behind his actions. I'm not saying that they were right. I'm saying that these are the actions that got him to this place. And the cause of the actions that got him to this place are Rey Mysterio being a bad friend, which I feel like I approved.
So we are just not including Chavo Guerrero either.
Oh, I've said Chavo Guerrero.
Okay, I just want to make sure I have.
Let's not overlook that.
I just want to make sure I have everything.
I did say at the beginning of this, Chavo is at fault as well. We both agreed on that. But my other points up to this point have been, they are also Rey being a bad friend. Slapping someone in the face after they refuse to fight you out of the love and kindness of their heart is being a bad friend. After
being
apologizing,
a bad friend would also be costing
after,
someone a world title.
Sir,
They've
both done it.
You had exactly.
Sir, they've both done it. They've both done it. We're not childs.
Who did it first?
We're not children. This isn't about who started it first.
Who interjected?
That is childish. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, who did it first?
What's childish is bringing a child into a place where a child...
Who did it first is childish.
All right, so this is where the... All right, so if the moderator has lost control over the debate, I feel like this is where the debate has to start.
No.
That's it. Get the tables. Move the pizza, move the computer, get the tables. We're ready to go. You see what happens when we talk wrestling.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, okay, before Rey Mysterio's defendant acts violently and just gives me this case, because that's what's happening right now. Stop! What are you doing? Stop!
He is turning.
Stop!
He is turning me into Eddie Guerrero of 2005.
Wow.
That is what he is doing.
Wow, the personal shots of my client. Wow.
Oh my God, this is great.
What I'm saying is,
we held it together for so long.
I know, it was going so well.
What I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is Rey Mysterio time and time again has pushed him to the edge. Chavo Guerrero helped him get there, yes. But Rey Mysterio pushed him over, slapping him in the face, beating him up week after week after week. And Eddie Guerrero, in his broken mental state, found a solution that helped Rey stop attacking him, that made Rey compliant, that made Rey able to come out in tag team matches. So Eddie used those things, in a sense, to right the wrongs. He felt, yes, Rey needed to be punished. But also, I want you close to me. Because we used to be close. I don't want to do these things. And I've said that from the beginning. At Judgment Day, I didn't want to do this. You pushed me to this. And then you attacked me afterwards, so I came up with a solution that made you stop attacking me, that made you do what I want. He wasn't all mentally there, so maybe it wasn't the right thing to do. And I won't advocate that it was. But I will tell you what, he wasn't in a perfect mental state because of Rey Mysterio. So who's to blame for all of this? Rey Mysterio. Chavo Guerrero and Rey Mysterio has caused Eddie to be pushed to a mental state where he did some things that are very questionable.
Okay, let me interject right here. How many more big events are there left in this timeline?
Oh, it's just the ladder match.
Yeah, it's just the ladder match.
The ladder match and the cage match.
The final point then. The next two.
All right.
So he's pushed him all the way to SummerSlam, and I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah.
So, we were pushed to SummerSlam. Rey has been forced to go through with this match, or actually create this match, so we can actually have some closure. They go through with the match. Eddie does every dirty thing he can to Rey, so Rey cannot win. Okay, it's a ladder match. There's no DQ. Eddie does everything in his power that, in their world where they come from, is seen as blatant disrespect. Eddie tries it. Everyone knows Eddie is wrong for doing this. Not just Rey. Not just the lawyer at the time who's with Dominick. Not just Rey's family. Eddie's own family. Wife and daughters. All of them. No, this is wrong. Eddie's own wife even tries to persuade Eddie that this is wrong. Eddie is not having it. So it takes everything to try to persuade Eddie Guerrero that what he's doing is wrong. And he still doesn't listen. Rey wins the match. Rey gets custody. Eddie is still not having it. Eddie still cannot get over the fact that Rey won again. That Rey is genuinely better. So what does he do? He calls for a cage match. And he beats him senseless. Only once Eddie finally gets that victory that he has never been able to get over his so-called friend, does Eddie leave him alone. This all stems just simply because jealousy, like I say earlier. Eddie cannot get over the fact he cannot beat Rey. So what does he do? Causes havoc. Costs him a title. And then once Rey costs him a title, he gets jealous because he gets one-upped. Challenges to another match. They have another match. He still can't win. Eddie will not stop until he can finally say he is quote unquote better. And even then, he still does it in a skeptical way. That's it.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I leave you with this. Eddie Guerrero has done some uncalled for things. In a broken mental state that one Rey Mysterio has put him in. He has done and brought in some questionable people, kids, children, and very close to beating Rey Mysterio. Who comes down to cost him that is his own wife. Now, the problem is, what Eddie's wife doesn't understand is, yes, maybe it was wrong to bring this in. Yes, he was in a broken mental state. Yes, he was doing some things that were totally unquestionable. Mm-hmm. Maybe Eddie should not have custody of Dominick. Totally right. Totally right. I agree. In that mental state, you don't want a kid around. I understand. But it's also why Eddie was on the road telling her, you shouldn't be here. But she did what she felt was right and made sure that Rey got custody of his son, who is technically Eddie's son. Rey has never repeated that. But for what it's worth, because Rey never once said you're not his biological father. So, for what it's worth.
Have you ever seen pictures of young Rey Mysterio?
For what it's worth, Rey has never disputed that. For what it is worth.
Oh my God.
For what it is worth.
I shall let you have that statement.
For what it is worth. Maybe she was right to cost Eddie that match. Mm-hmm. But now let's think about it from Eddie's perspective. I have found this method, mm-hmm. after being broken down in every way possible, mm-hmm. to try and restore things to how they should be. Mm-hmm. And now my own wife has cost me that. So we're back to square one. And I'm even possibly more mentally scarred because now the one thing I had to fix it is gone. What is left to do? What can be salvaged? What else can I do? Well, I can beat him. Because I already knew I was capable of it before my wife stepped in and cost me. I know I can beat him. And with our friendship not able to be restored, because that's gone now, without me at least being able to get a championship, get on the same page, get my apology, get any source of family back, have a little piece of Rey with me, maybe. Now that that's all gone, well, what else do I have? Well, for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, I've been hearing the chitter-chatter of, you're just mad because, as Rey's defendant will tell you, mm-hmm. Eddie can't beat Rey. Eddie can't beat Rey. Eddie can't beat Rey, which really is not what this is about. But now it is, because it's the only thing I can stop. I've lost everything that I actually wanted to gain from this. But you know what I can do? I can address all you people. I can beat Rey. So, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cancel out his 619. I'm going to ask for one last cage match. I'm going to show you people that he's been getting by the skin of his teeth, by beating him down as much as I possibly can. And then I'm going to beat him like you keep saying I can't do. Does it put him in the best place mentally afterwards? Probably not. But it's the little bit his brain can piece together for him to salvage and possibly have some closure. He's trying his best to get better, and that's all he had left. So he did what he had left to do, and then he left it. Could he have continued it? Could he have kept finding ways to just beat down Rey Mysterio? Yes, of course he could. Because he's better than Rey Mysterio. But he found a way in his broken down mental, physical, emotional state to find some closure for himself to get better. Because he's gone through addiction before. And the addiction of getting his friend back totally tore him apart, and he realized, you know what?
He's going back to addiction.
Just like that. Just like when I was addicted to alcohol, I need to get over this. So he did what he had to do to get some closure from this. Because he was tired of being beaten down by his friends, having his wife defend him from his actions, which he knew maybe were uncalled for. He got closure and got better. But he would have only be put in that place by Rey Mysterio assaulting him multiple times, verbally abusing him, and costing him valuable points in his career. Who's at fault here, ladies and gentlemen? Rey Mysterio. You break a man down to the point of no return. All the man wants is things to go back to normal. You stop him from that,
whose moments
and then all that's left
first?
for him, all that's left for him after everything is taken away,
transpired first?
all that's left for him after everything is taken away, and even his family is against him, is closure. So he took it.
With every advantage he could get.
And yes, because he had nobody else. He had nothing else. He was mentally, physically, emotionally broken down, and he did what he had to do to find some closure so he could get better.
Yes.
Because who put him there?
Sure.
Rey Mysterio.
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, my closing statement.
Oh, hold on.
Oh.
Opening statements were timed, so closing statements.
Okay.
All right.
Give me the time.
Do 3 minutes yet again.
Go ahead, Stevie Jobber.
All right. Go.
Ladies and gentlemen, my closing statement. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, former tag team champion, world champion, good friend, Eddie Guerrero, was a man that was pushed to jealousy and chose to be a good friend. And in return for being a good friend, for trying to choose the right road, for trying to defend his friends, to keep his family unit together, was slapped in the face, verbally abused, constantly jabbed at by millions, and assaulted multiple times for weeks on end, to the point where he was broken down emotionally because of his losses, broken down physically because of the assault, broken down mentally because of the repeated phrases, jabs at him not only by his former best friend, but by his family and by the millions that used to adore him. And he was doing some things that were uncalled for because he wasn't in the mental state to know how to solve his problems logically because of the people that had pushed him there. And in this fight, in this stress, in this pain, he did the best he could to find closure. And I feel as though Eddie Guerrero should not be at fault for being broken down of all common logic.
A minute left.
For being broken down for all common logic. From being broken down from all mental stability. From being broken down from all emotional stability. And feeling backed in a corner. Fight or flight. Eddie's mind takes over. A mind that is cracked, broken, and only resource was to pull from things he had never pulled from before.
30 seconds.
And after his family, his friends, his fans had taken everything away from him, he decided he would find closure and try to get him out of this mental, emotional, and physical stress. He shouldn't be commended for his actions, but he should be understood for them. He should know who got him there. That being Rey Mysterio.
4.
I rest my case.
3. 2. All right. And now time for Duke Duncan. Are you set, sir? All right. 3, 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, this case is pretty cut and dry. He's already said this is stemmed from jealousy, and this has not been the best state of mind for Eddie Guerrero. I agree. This hasn't been the best state of mind for Eddie Guerrero. But...
No reaction. I'm going to pause. Gain your cool. You stood there and listened to yours. All right, Duke, to get back to your point, you still have 2.5 minutes. Go ahead.
But he is also in the wrong. He is very wrong. Nobody turned on Eddie. Fans were still cheering for Eddie, just like they were cheering for Rey. The fans might have cheered for Rey a little more. Maybe that's what got Eddie jealous. Fans supporting him more. Eddie costed him a shot at the title. Eddie allowed him to get beat down. Eddie then went out, pretended to save him, beat him down again. Eddie brought things into this that you don't need to bring in. Anything Eddie could do to get the advantage, anything Eddie could do to actually say he beat Rey at something is what he did. And they were uncalled for in every sense of the word. He brought in a child, went against his own wife, beat up other friends, allowed his nephew to actually persuade him to do these things. This man is definitely in the wrong for what he did. And it further, I forget the word here.
1 minute left.
It further validates what Rey Mysterio has said to Eddie Guerrero before. In doing these things, he has really, truly shown that he is a chicken shit. Thank you.
All right. So
That was
now,
fun.
people,
That was fun.
we open it up to you guys. You get to pick the winner. We're going to go with Eddie. We're going to go with Rey. Who was right and who was wrong? Leave it in the comments. Respond on Instagram.
Yeah,
Anywhere you feel.
Yeah, we're gonna make a post about this. We're gonna put it on our Instagram, and we're gonna have you guys decide who was right and who was wrong. Was Eddie right? Was Rey right? And if you like this, comment and let us know that you like this and you want us to do more of these, because we got a couple more that we're thinking of doing, and we can come up with even more.
Also, something that neither of these guys have said. Rest in peace, Eddie. We miss you.
Yes, we definitely do. It was so hard for me to go against Eddie, but I had to. All right, Stevie, you got anything you want to say before we log off?
This was really fun. I really enjoyed it. Rest in peace, Eddie. They're wrong to go against the dead man anyway.
Oh man! One of us is gonna wind up going. One of us is gonna wind up going through a
This
table.
isn't going to end just
off.
because the podcast is over.
You know what, guys? Let us know who won. Thank you for listening. I will accept personal DMs to tell me I won.
You better watch those DMs.
Ruh-roh. I think he gonna lose now. Nah, but this was definitely fun, man. I had a blast doing it. Stevie, I hope you had a blast doing it. I'm gonna say something that no one has said. Thank you to our moderator, Mrs. Jobber.
Thank
She
you,
did a
thank
phenomenal
you.
job.
Absolutely.
Lost control for a little bit there, but I
Yeah, but
reeled it back in.
She reeled it back in. She got control of
Like
it.
a true ring general.
Yeah, there you go. But that's pretty much it, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Stay blessed and stay dangerous.